Okay. Dear audience, as a side track on a polar dialogue and the assembly, we talked about new forms of collaboration of people who are enclosed in the ice on floating platforms, having a lot of time thinking about the cryosphere changes, share observations, take on board scientists and other people to learn. And we have a great lineup, and we would like to ask that lineup to quickly run us through new endeavors, new quests of sharing life, emotions, and knowledge with the cryosphere. And we start with Patrick Aebischer.
Okay, thank you. I think it's a good introduction from the last panel. To some extent, research goes often by satellites and so on, and large research vessels, they're very important, but if you want to go close to the coast, and also in respect to the people living over there, it's easier and more respectful in terms of, I would say, sustainability. Small platforms can do a lot. Also, technology has moved to the kind of, it can be miniaturized, so you can do a lot more with smaller platforms. So I think those are interesting complementary instruments, and that's what we've done, with the Forel, who's the father, in fact, of limnology, a Swiss. And the Swiss are good to do small things, complex, reliable, and hopefully respectful. So that's what we've done, is to develop and retrofit this boat, which is an aluminum hull, so that you can now operate it to do research, coastal research, because that we believe is very important today, and at the disposal of both the Swiss and the international community. What we're good at is also to come and invent the new instrumentation that you could do more, because science is really driven by the question, by the kind of technology that you have to answer the questions. And that's where both Swiss Institute of Technology, with some of the leading universities in the world, can develop this instrumentation. And that's what we've done. We went for the first time in Greenland this summer, and we intend to go and develop it. But I think the idea to collaborate with the other small platform is key, again, in the whole respect that we need.
Thank you, Patrick. And we have Cornelius from Team Malizia.
Yeah. First of all, a question to the audience. Who's a sailor here? Can you lift your hand? Okay. All right. Okay.
Wow.
That's great, because we need more of you, because our sport is really happening outside, nature at first hand. And I have the privilege to introduce to you Team Malizia. This is the team behind the offshore skipper Boris Herrmann, who sails around the world non-stop in the Vendée Globe in a few weeks. You see our lovely boat, and it's a very special boat, because it's not only a race boat. You say floating platforms. This is everything else but floating. We are chasing the wind and the waves to go as fast as possible, up to 39 knots, with these fantastic foils. And but if you look behind the scenes, it's more than just a racing team. It's more than just this. It's a race. We must win climate action now. That's our mission goal. And this special boat, ladies and gentlemen, is also collecting a lot of data, especially data from the most vast and remote parts of the ocean. We call it the Southern Ocean. You see here one sample of data that we have collected during the last Vendée Globe in 2020, where Boris was the first German skipper sailing around the world with a so-called ocean pack. It's an instrument fixed on board where you measure CO2, salinity, temperature, oxygen, so important indicators for measuring the health status of the ocean. And this entire team that is like behind this boat and behind Boris is pursuing education, ocean education, and teaching especially the younger generation about the interaction, interrelationship between climate and ocean, because the oceans are so important for our climate. They're buffering climate change. They're absorbing over 25% of the human-induced CO2 and over 90% of the excess heat, so the heat that is trapped in the atmosphere. And we do not know, ladies and gentlemen, when we are reaching tipping points. And this is why this data that we collect with these other platforms and colleagues here at this panel, to really like find the scientific information when there are tipping points and what consequences we have to take. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And then we have Arved Fuchs, who gets to go fantastic places too with a pretty boat, right, Arved?
Yeah, it's totally different from the one Cornelius just said. It's 93 years old, and it's a totally different design, and we're running a project called Ocean Change, so the change is taking place along the oceans, along the coastlines as well. And to cut a long story short, so we might all have different boats and maybe different concepts, but we all have in common that we are collecting collecting scientific data. And not only that, so we are trying to raise awareness for what's going on in the Arctic and the polar areas, on the oceans themselves. And I think we can only solve the problems if we just pull together on one string, basically. And that's why we have to get people involved, and that includes, of course, also all the indigenous people. So they have a culture for more than a couple of thousand years living in the far north under very harsh conditions, and they know about it, and they know they have a lot of knowledge which we should respect and take into consideration. So in general, we should all work together, and I think that's why this panel is very, very useful, because we can exchange ideas and concepts and so on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arved. And then Morten has an even prettier boat.
Yeah, I'm Morten Rasch, and I'm representing the three-mast top gallant schooner Activ. If you think it's looking cool, I can assure you that I do the same. We have very short time here, so I will emphasize just one thing, that there's a great potential for science communications in ships like this. I remember when I was young, I was watching Jacques Cousteau on television, and that was kind of the reason for me to go into natural science. With this specific ship, we already have a plan for the next 3 years. We have a Danish scientist who have received a grant of 80 million euro to solve important problems in the Earth and on the Earth, and he's going to Easter Island and to Northeast Greenland, very remote places. We'll use this ship for that purpose as a platform. And we will have an international filming crew on board making 8 documentaries about this thing. And I hope that it will have the same effect on young people, but also on old policymakers, that they actually become aware of what is important, and that it is communicated in the right way. Thank you.
Thank you. And then last but not least, Romain from Tara.
Hello everyone, I'm very moved by the 2 first panels. I mean, I would like to say that with Miyuki we shall stand, because we have a gun on here because of the war, we have a gun in here because of climate change. People claiming everywhere we need solutions, but we know the solution is the Paris Agreement. And we can do everything we want, but the solution is the Paris Agreement for this last threat that we can still manage more than the war. So I'm here for this panel. I'm in charge of this foundation that works since 21 years now. We did this nonsen drift with this schooner that you can see here in the frozen ocean. And we are now building, and in a few weeks from now, launching this new platform to go in the Arctic Ocean for the next 20 years to monitor and witness on the long term the melting of this so-called so-loved ice. And it's very challenging. And what I want to say is that there is so much to do. There's so much to do to understand how it goes, to understand how it functions, to understand we should all work together as much as we can. And our challenge here is to make sure that we are complementary to the research done by institutes around the world, complementary to them, even bringing new knowledge also to the table, a new engagement, a new commitment, as you all said before, and it's really been committed to that. And if you agree, Mr. Chairman, the Polar Station will be docked here next year for the Arctic Circle Conference, if you welcome us. No, thank you, and we are all invited to visit it next year. See you in a year now.
Cool.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to our panel. Our aim here is not to say that this is the only solution. The aim is to say that there are many ways to contribute to the challenges that we have, and that actually creating synergies, notably through smaller platforms that are respectful in terms of the way they approach coastal regions, in terms of their environmental footprint as well, is an important endeavor that we are actually taking on right here, from racing to research, more floating and more floating or sailing labs, and we can find actually commonalities and many synergies to contribute to common goals and to large international initiatives. And maybe you would like to say a word about this.
Mm-hmm.
You already have a mic.
I have a mic, sorry. Yeah, and if you have questions, you can also raise arm in a moment. So a lot of scientists have ideas of how they fix gaps in data and knowledge, important gaps, like what will be the decline of ice and the sea level rise, what organisms are actually living in a place and how is this changing, and often they are limited by having an availability of platforms to do their work. Some countries who have no large research vessels or no polar station on the ice year round, they can turn to smaller platforms, and so that we have this panel. We had a workshop today. We had a larger parallel session on polar dialogue with the help of these representatives of floating platforms. And there was a great enthusiasm in bringing together collaboration and efforts to know what everyone is doing and can serve thereby science to do their job much better and in a more sustainable way. What we would also be discussing from now on is the mixture of old technologies, what we call old, the story of boats, how they have enabled humans to get to know the ocean and ice, and new technologies such as robotics and new sensors that can really allow us to understand where life goes in the seas and under the ice. And that's a very nice endeavor. So we are grateful to all of you that you're here. And, or maybe we can have a quick round if there is not a question in the room. Don't know. Does anyone have a question? If not, then we can have a quick room to our dear panelists of what they hope most to achieve with their next mission. We do that? I do what? You say what hopes you have with your next mission.
Well, the hope is that we're going to find some ice there in the North Pole, yeah, in the coming 20 years, and we'll be able to share that with you guys. And also, who wants to come with us for 8 months in the drift at the North Pole in the winter? How much?
All the sailors.
Look me on in LinkedIn. Bye-bye.
Morten.
Yeah, you know, besides doing good research, and we're pretty sure that we will do that, then I think this possibility of establishing relations with people, and that's both with the people on board the ship. We'll have many different people on board the ship and from many different cultures. There are seamen, there are also scientists, but of course also with people that we meet on our journey. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So from the side maybe of a science funding organization, I really hope that we can create synergies that contribute to these large programs, because we have to realize we have discussed IPY, we have discussed Antarctica in sync. We have to find creative and clever ways to bring resources together, because mobilizing extra resources is complicated. We should not fool ourselves. National finances are not easy to navigate in many countries these days for science. And being clever also about using more agile ways of doing science is an important and I think responsible thing to do.
Arved, where does your next mission take you?
Well, it's not absolutely clear right now because we just returned about 3-4 weeks ago, and we are just starting planning. But it will be again an international crew, of course, and there will be women and men on board, by the way. So it's not only strictly a man's world. And so we will head up north again, as it looks right now, and but we are working on it still. So yeah, that's our main.
Yeah, well, the next mission is just like around the corner, which is the next Vendée Globe. So this race around the world non-stop, solo, 80 days alone at sea for Boris. So we do, as a team, we do everything we can to send him at sea. But in terms of course, our commitment to our slogan and to our mission, we would like to have more collaboration across you guys, across the science community. Also looking into ideas and strategies how we can better communicate science, because collecting data is one thing, but you have to tell people what data actually mean, what is the underlying message, and the message is clear. We have to win this race.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know, science is a never-ending thing. So we have some of the data today, the facts, and I think the facts are very important to help, you know, the policymakers and to take them. But I think we have to always anticipate, and I think we have to provide the tools for the people to take decisions. And I think this is so important. Now, what we see is science has never gone as fast as possible. It's kind of exponential, which is also a challenge for policymakers. And I think we have to push the boundaries. But I think we have to push the boundaries by being more respectful and walk the talk ourselves. And I think the technology allows you now to do more things with less energy in a more respectful way. And I think this is really the philosophy, at least, behind the Forel. But I think what we had the discussion today is that's something that we really share. We want to contribute, and we want to contribute in a fair, but also in a fact-gathering way.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And so we close with this idea of what would you think that people in 100 or 200 years think of our times and our ability to give life a name that potentially will not be there any longer or will grow faster. I believe in the mission of eyewitnesses, and I believe in the collaboration that we can do. And it's fantastic to know that with all of these great ambitious expedition leaders and floating platforms and racing platforms, we can contribute to knowledge that people in 100 and 200 years will be lucky to have. So thank you, all of you panelists.